Health IQ podcast, From Tantrums to Triumphs. Episode 17, The Playful Path to a Happy Child.
Welcome back to Health IQ. We have a great episode for you today on helping your young child or grandchild thrive. Joining me at the table today is Janet Griffiths. Janet teaches early childhood education classes at Mesalands Community College. She has a bachelor's in elementary ed and a master's in early childhood education. We also have at the table Joyce Runyan, and I am Brenda Bishop. Our film crew today is Robert Hockaday and Gordon Runyan. When my children were babies, I read everything I could to figure out how to feed them, how to help them learn, how to help them be healthy. And I know that's a concern for all parents. We all want our kids to thrive and be healthy. But there's so much more information out there. I mean, with the internet and TV and podcasts and everything, there's just so much information out there that sometimes it's hard to weed it out. So I'm so glad you're here today to help us break down some of these things and learn a little bit more, and maybe help our parents not be so stressed. I feel that they sometimes work way too hard to get their kids to a milestone that they may not even be ready for. So I would like for you to just share some of your tips for how you think parents should help their kids develop.
There is a world of information out there on how to do that. One of the things that I use in my class, and I brought just a copy of this little handout, 12 Ways to Build a Brighter Child. And I took this from a book. It's not my ideas. William and Martha Sears, in their book, was A Successful Child.
I love their books.
And so I'm just going to hit the highlights a little bit, and then we can talk more a little bit. First of all, to have a healthy child, they have to have a healthy womb start. So that means, no narcotics, cigarettes, alcohol, a healthy diet, those kinds of things. You want them to be healthy before they're born. So anything you can do to the development of the fetus is just going to help them down the road so much more. The other one is, and I think this is interesting, smart caring is one of the things. It says babies learn a lot in the arms of busy caregivers. And I think, we have so many devices now. We have little seats and bouncy seats, and we have, car seats, and we keep them strapped into so many things. But what this is saying is get them up and carry them around and let them see their world. Let them see, they take in so much more, plus they learn to focus and they learn to hold their heads up, and there's muscle skills, and they see more, plus there's a bonding with the mother there.
One of their tips that I got is I had the sling.
Right.
And my kids loved to sit in their sling facing out so that they could see the world.
Right, yeah. So that stimulation develops the sight, hearing, and understanding of kind of what's in the room and what's outside and where we are.
You're more likely to talk to them as well.
Right.
Saying, oh, did you see this over here? And look at this. This is this color. Whereas if they're somewhere being occupied, you're going to miss those opportunities to talk to them.
And, one thing, which is smart talk, I'll just go to that one. It says, babies don't have to be taught to use language, but the more of it they hear, the better they learn to speak. So just what Joyce was saying, the more you talk to them. And one of the statistics I learned when I was in graduate school, and I still think about it all the time, is they said that the firstborn child usually has more advanced language skills than the subsequent ones. And I always thought it would be different because I thought they would speak, they'd have brothers and sisters running around, they'd learn to speak more. But it's that one-on-one from the parent to the child. And so when you have one, you talk to them one-on-one. When you have two or three, it's spread out.
You talk to that first one and say, you go take care of that.
Yeah, that's true. So, that's just communication. And of course, language skills are very, very important.
And what kind of words do you
how do you talk to them?
Well, I think, you want to just talk to them like you talk to anybody.
Person,
yeah, like a person. We don't need the baby talk all the time, which is everybody tends to want to do with babies because they are so cute, and we want to talk that way, but we want them to learn. We don't want them to grow up being 15 or 20, 25 still doing baby talk. We want them to learn this is language. And
one of the things as a babysitter I found very frustrating was when parents had made up words for items.
Oh,
And you're the kids asking for something, you have no idea what they're talking about.
yeah.
Right. Good idea. Right.
But a lot of families make up words for different items.
Right. So, yeah, the more you can keep it standard, I mean, that's just training for adulthood, which is, from the minute that baby's born, we're starting them on a path to be
And that's the goal.
Adults,
Yeah, to be competent.
to be functioning adults. So, and then the other thing is nutrition. We talked a little bit about that, but of course, breastfed babies, they've never been able to replicate that. So the more, and there's great formula out there, but it's still, nature is still nature.
And they get a
still
lot
haven't
more
done-
than just basic nutrients
Yeah.
from breast milk. So
Right. So they get the mothering, they get the warm
that
interaction.
attachment and connection.
Right.
Yeah.
And it said, then the next one was smart responses. Building a brainy baby depends not only on how you talk, but also how you listen. So, as you interact with them back and forth, you talk to them, you repeat what they're saying to you and let them know that you're tuned in and you're listening. And I think one thing that I see watching, and we're going to talk a little bit, I think, about electronics, but what I see so much now are mothers, dads on their phones ignoring their babies. You see them everywhere you go. Mom, mama, 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 mama. Nobody's listening to them. So they're striving to try to get your attention, but we're looking at our phones instead of looking at our baby. So you take them to the park to play, but nobody's watching them.
Yeah.
You're not playing with them. You're not interacting with them. And I see that a lot.
Well, and then when kids don't get attention, they start doing more behaviors
Yeah. They'll get it
to be
eventually.
more extreme
Yeah.
to get attention, and some of those behaviors we don't really want.
Right. Yeah, they're going to get attention one way or another. And it's so, but this, when we're talking about how are you wanting your child to develop, they have to be back and forth. It has to be you're tuned in to them and they know. And it's not that you want them to learn to do things on their own, but if they can't know that, and that's part of that attachment, they know I can talk to mom, she'll listen to me, but then I can go do something else. But if they never get your attention, they're going to work and work and work harder for it.
Well, and that's modeling a relationship as well, that there's give and take and listening and talking. And so that
is true.
That's part of knowing how to interact with people.
And parents are the most important educators in their child's
Definitely.
life because you're the first one, and no teacher, no
No stress.
nobody else is going to have as much influence as you do.
Yeah.
So you're the most important educators in their children's lives.
Well, and on that, just talking to them and listening to them, I always felt it was important to kneel down or raise my kid up or something so that I could actually see them eye to eye when they were talking to me.
Right.
Instead of, because then they knew you were talking to them and they knew you could really read their body language better than if you just had them behind you and you were just chatting.
Another one is smart reading. We can never stress the importance enough. We want children, one of the things we talk about is reading in schools and literacy, but the more you read to them, the better they are. And there's so many statistics that support that. Start reading to those babies from the day they're born. And again, that's the talking, they're hearing language, and as they progress, they learn that this is, a book, this is, what I'm saying actually has words. They can't read the words yet, but there's pictures that go with what I'm saying. They learn, one thing that they learn to do is turn a page, and they learn, we start over here and we go to here, and, there's just all those little things that you're not necessarily teaching them, but they learn. And, you can't take them to all those places that books can, but they can learn about the world, they can learn about people, they can learn about animals, they can learn about everything just from reading. So, there's so many statistics. There's statistics that look at how many books are in a child's home versus going with their juvenile delinquency rates.
Oh, wow.
I didn't
They
know
can
that.
do it from second grade, and there's some statistics that show second grade corresponds to where they are as adults.
That's
Well,
super
and reading
interesting.
skills just are so helpful throughout your school.
Right.
That to have those reading skills, I'm sure it helps with that too. I can remember taking a trip with my daughter cross country when she was just a few weeks old. And I didn't want her to sleep the whole way because then she would have been up all night when we were trying to sleep. So I had these picture books and I sat next to her the whole time. Apple, banana, grape.
Trying to keep her going.
Car. Reading these picture books to her, and they were just one word things, but and then, playing other games, peekaboo and everything. But my goal was to keep her awake.
How did Tim take that?
And the same way as learning all the other songs that we learned.
Right. So, went through them 100 times. And the next one is smart music, which goes into that.
Yeah.
Music is really important. They love the little songs. They love the little motions. They learn all those little rhythms. And that's, it relaxes the mind and body. And it says music can make infant children calmer and possibly
Definitely.
smarter.
Yes.
So there you go.
Oh, there's a lot of information about music and
All its benefits.
yes. So.
And then the other thing is smart play. And I think, I do one whole class on play because the play is so important. And we just, tend to think in schools have, and I have some research here about that too, but have tend to say we don't need to play, kids don't need to play, we need to sit them down and teach them stuff. But that's how they learn. The little ones learn through play. And so play is the most important thing you can do with kids. Let them play, give them some free time, and they need some time. They don't get into play in 5 minutes. Especially 2 and 3 and 4-year-olds, they need some extended time to think things through and play and come up with everything that is important to them. And one thing I did write down too as a note was I read this morning that there was a bunch of CEOs. They did some research, questions to CEOs, and said, what are the things that you find employees are lacking? And the number one thing was creativity.
From playing, having that time to think about things.
And then with play, they learn all the social skills. They're creative. They're making up their own games. It's not an adult. You can give them props, and you may have to teach them how to play. Sometimes you have to teach kids how to play because they've never done that before. But the more they do it, the more creative they are. They also have negotiation skills. Because not every child will play like you want them to play.
Yeah.
So you have to learn to give and take, and those are all skills that are
having
important.
those friends over to do things with. When my son was little, we were doing all the sports things with the daughter, and he would just sit and play drawing in the dirt. I mean, entertain himself with a stick.
Right.
So there's lots that if you give them that time and don't try to direct that they'll learn to do on their own.
Yeah, and it's really important. How many adults do we know that can't be by themselves, can't take their time by themselves if somebody's not there? They have to either have the TV, they have to have the computer, they have to have a phone, they have to have somebody over. They can't think of what I would do quietly by myself for a little bit of time. Yeah. So, and that's concentration. It's motor, social, language skills. I mean, all those kinds of things that they learn just from play. And you talked about toys. We tend to think, oh, I have to buy these kids all these toys. And I'm a grandmother now, so when my kids were little, my grandkids were little, I started looking for some toys, and I was just appalled at what the toys that were out there, because I said every one of them for my 2-year-old was ABCs 1, 2, 3s. I don't want to teach them that at 2 years old. That's not a goal of mine. I wanted them to do fun things and open-ended things. And so, there's some tips on toys. What will it teach my child? And that's important. Will it hold my child's attention? Is it safe? Is it annoying for me to see or hear? Which
It's huge.
Every
It's
parent
huge.
will know that there's things that will drive you nuts. Does it promote creativity and social interaction? Is it non-combative or non-aggressive? Does it foster eye-hand coordination and problem-solving skills? And how many senses does it stimulate? You know, one thing we're finding with a lot of children now is sensory deprivation, sensory and processing disorder. And because they're not out there developing senses, and it has to start at infancy. So, and remember, how you learn about your world is through your senses. Eyes, ears, nose, taste, touch, all those things. We find, even find some of the ADHD correlation. Part of it is sensory, that they have lack some sensory skills. So when we give them these, processed toys that they can punch a button, and again, we have strong fingers, they can punch a button and do one thing, how many senses does it stimulate? And the other one is, will the toy have a long play life? Once they've learned to punch all the buttons, are they done with it? Mm-hmm. So you spent $25 for a toy that nobody's going to touch it again. Yeah. They've already learned all they need to do with it. So, I think you talked about a stick. You don't. So sometimes those kinds of things are what they're going to play with. We know boxes. You put a box in a room and they'll play for hours with a box. So sometimes we don't do that.
They love blocks.
Yeah.
And sometimes those can be annoying when you step on them. But blocks and sandbox toys and all those kinds of things were things my kids absolutely loved.
Right. And so it doesn't have to be more toys. It has to be just some simple things that they can play with and then change them out and put some more things in. And they're open-ended. You think of everything that you can do with a set of blocks. I mean, they can build, they can make roads, they can drive things on them, they can turn them into whatever you want them to turn them in. And there's just lots of things they can do that doesn't one size fits all. And then the other one is discover how your child is smart. And, there's a lot of research now on multiple intelligences, which I really like. It talks about, we're not all smart in the same way. Some people are very linguistic, some people are very mathematical, some people, are very athletic, some are musical, some like to be outside. Everybody's different and we're all smart in different ways. So, so we have to realize that not every baby, and if you've had more than one child, you realize that they're not the same. Yes. Even though you're sure after you had that first one that you had it all down now, and then you have another one, nothing works
completely
the same.
Different.
Yeah, completely different. So different children are smart in different ways, and then a smart school start. It said so. It says when your kids get in school, make schoolwork a priority. Make sure they understand that this is kind of their job. School is their job right now. It's not something, well, you can do everything else, and if you get around to schoolwork, you can do it. So, if you want them to be successful in school, then you have to set that precedent for them. And then life is really the best teacher. Get them out and let them do lots of different things. The whole world is a classroom. They don't have to be in one spot. Let them instill a love of learning, not just, they don't have to just be in one spot, learn one class, go to school and do nothing else. So there's lots of things. Anyway, that's kind of some ideas that I got from that book, The Successful Child, that I think I like to build, and I use those in my class a lot.
They're really good points, and I think, as parents, you always want to do the best that you can for your child. And so those are some really great things to think about. How can I implement these things? And some are going to be easier than others, but always spending time. And, no phones, no TV, just in playing.
And that undivided attention.
Right.
For, even if it's just a couple of minutes, but, just like our partners, we need to give them some undivided attention. So we do our kids. So I know that there is a big push in New Mexico right now to increase our preschools, to get our kids into preschool, and especially rural communities may have struggle with that because there's a certain degree that's needed for a run-up preschool. And I would like you to talk a little bit about that whole push and how we can help our young mothers who might have decided that caring for kids would be important, and they would like to do that.
Right. There is a new Department of Early Childhood that has been established in the state of New Mexico, and so they are really promoting helping get degrees for people, and it can be even at a home daycare. We have a huge need for home daycares, daycare centers, not only pre-K, but parents are looking for someone that can watch their children while they work. And so what the state has come up with is that they will provide a scholarship. If you're working in some kind of a center, even a home daycare center, 20 hours a week, they will pay your tuition, they'll pay your books, they'll pay everything you need to go to college to help you out. So they're trying to get more people into the field and get degrees for people. And preschools are very, very important. I think there's a little bit of a push to make them more academic. That's one of the things that I think we need to be careful with, that because we talked about play already, how important that is, but having a social setting where the kids can play together and they learn all these different skills. And it's just readiness skills. They need gross motor skills, they need fine motor skills, they need social emotional skills, they need cognitive skills. And sometimes so many schools want to just develop cognitive skills, and that means ABCs, and my term ABCs and 1, 2, 3s, but there's so much more that preschools and home daycare can provide for children. And again, that's that creativity and that play, and give them some time to do that.
Well, and you talked about negotiating skills,
right,
and all that, and so they can definitely learn all those skills that we need just to be able to interact with other people throughout our lives.
Throughout our lives, it starts there, and and what do you? It's self-control, self-regulating skills. That's really important, and part of that is brain development. That's why a 2-year-old is good for temper tantrums. They haven't learned how to do that yet. But, as you work through it, then they learn ways that they can self-control, they can self-soothe. They don't have to lay on the floor and kick and scream and tear something up. But, that's just part of the thing. And it's brain development. It's developmental appropriate behavior, we call it a lot. So, part of it's development, and part of it takes time. But the more they're around other people, and the more parents are working with them and teachers are working with them, those skills come.
So if someone wanted to get a degree, would they have to go all the way through bachelor's, or can they get, is there some career options for people who just have an associate?
Right, they can get an associate's degree, and a lot of daycare centers are associate's degree. Head Start, associate's degree. They move up a notch, in pay scale once they get their associate's degree. And they're always looking for qualified staff. Yeah. So, we offer an associate's degree. One thing about the early childhood department in the state of New Mexico is that every college and every community college, we offer the exact same classes. So the same course number, the same course description, the same learning outcomes. So no matter where you go in the state of New Mexico, every early childhood class will transfer. So,
that's great.
Whereas it's, you can't say, well, Eastern is going to require something different than we require here. And the class is kind of front-loaded. I mean, the degree is front-loaded a lot. So there's 11 early childhood classes for an associate's degree, which is a lot. But then when you go to your bachelor's, you have more practicums, and you have student more teaching and
practical.
Yeah, and some of those kinds of things. And I think that's because a lot of daycares and places, they will just get an associate's degree. Mm-hmm. But there is a wealth of opportunity and a lot of help for any student that would like to pursue a degree. And we do teach those at Mesa Lands. We have the associate's degree.
Great. So we like to end our podcast with a little food for thought. And so I come up with 2, but I think I settled on this one. Mm-hmm. Sort of, children are not things to be molded, but are people to be unfolded.
Oh, that's great.
Isn't that a great quote?
That
it
is
sort
a great
of
quote.
Fits a lot with what you talked about, but I just think that we need to just allow our kids that space, that time, maybe some props, like you said, to unfold their true potentials. And we so often try to box them in. That's how I looked at that quote.
That's wonderful. That's a wonderful quote. I like that.
Yeah, I think you always want to look at what their strong points are and help to fortify those things. And in the same way, they're going to have weaknesses that you want to help strengthen and build up. And so that's going to be different for each child that you have. And sometimes those strong points you may have to temper a little bit and say, okay, yeah, I know you can do that. And maybe this one can't do that, but this is all okay. And just as a parent, having that freedom to, just say, this is my kid and I'm really happy with who you are. And let's see who you become.
True.
Do you have anything you want to add before we close out?
No, I think this is a great discussion, and of course, we could go for days with discussing all these points.
Oh yes, we're going to have you back because we missed a whole section. Our 20 minutes goes pretty fast. We'd like to thank you for joining us today with your own Tumblr, and we've labeled it with our podcast, so you can look us up when it's your turn. And we want to thank all of you for joining us today. We hope you learned something to help your young child and your life thrive. And maybe you are looking for a new career, you might consider early childhood education. Please come back for our next episode as we will have another timely topic.
Bye.
Bye.
Special thanks to our guest contributor, Janet Griffiths of Mezzanine Community College. Our host was Brenda Bishop. Co-host was Joyce Runyan. Podcast crew, our director is Robert F. Hockaday. Producers are Robert F. Hockaday and Joyce Runyan. Video crew was Gordon Runyan. Music provided by David Morris.
This podcast was made possible by a New Mexico Department of Health Better Together grant. Additional information about today's topic will be on the Health IQ blog located on the Quay County Health Council's website at www.qchealthcouncil.org. Be sure to follow the Quay County Health Council on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram at Quay County Health.
This podcast was created solely for educational purposes. It is not intended as a substitute for advice from a healthcare or mental health professional.